Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another Teacher Joseph podcast. Today, we're going to look at the past continuous using a song. Yes, that's right. We're going to look at Jealous Guy by Brian Ferry. I'm sure you all know that song. It's the one that begins with the whistle. I can't whistle, so I'm not going to even try. But once you hear the lyrics, I'm sure you'll know it. The song was originally recorded by John Lennon. It's very good for the past continuous. Brian Ferry did a cover of this song, but the original was recorded by John Lennon. And now there's a man with a past continuous, huh? He really knows how to use his past continuous grammar. Let's go through it. So he says in the first verse, and I'm looking at the Brian Ferry lyrics. I think they're the same, whether you listen to John Lennon or Brian Ferry. He says, "I was dreaming of the past, and my heart was beating fast. I began to lose control." I began to lose control. So I was dreaming. My heart was beating. These are two examples of the past continuous. It's really interesting because in British English, we use the past continuous when we're telling a story. For example, I was standing at the bus stop and I met my friend. I was waiting for the bus and I met an old friend of mine. Okay. I was standing in the shop and I couldn't find milk. But in American English, they just use it without any story. For example, what did you do yesterday? Oh, I was working. Uh-huh. And what happened? Nothing. I was working. And that's beginning to come into British English as well. But I'm always waiting for the last part of the story when somebody says, "Oh, I was standing at the bus stop yesterday." Yeah. And what happened? Oh, nothing. I was waiting for the bus. It's like I'm telling you part of a story and you're waiting for the next bit. In American English, that's very common. It's coming here as well. So there's such a mixture now between American and British English. So in this song, which is called Jealous Guy by Brian Ferry, he's actually telling us a story. So he says, I was dreaming of the past and my heart was beating fast. I began to lose control. I began to lose control. And then the next bit, he doesn't use the past continuous. He says, I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry that I made you cry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm just a jealous guy. And then he goes back to his past continuous. So he says, I was feeling insecure. You might not love me anymore. I was shivering inside. I was shivering inside. Oh, I remember once I was sitting in an English bar. Actually, I think it was an Irish bar in the middle of Barcelona. And someone got up to sing this song at a karaoke. And he was halfway through it. And he just got to the bit about, I didn't mean to hurt you. And he keeled over. He just completely keeled over. To keel over is when you fall over suddenly. So perhaps if you're ill, for example, or if you're drunk, you might keel over. Now, we usually use this phrase when we are reporting an accident or something that's just happened. I couldn't believe it. I was standing next to this guy at the bus stop. The next thing you know, he just keeled over. It means he just fell over suddenly. To keel over. Very common in English, this. Okay. So yeah, I was in this bar in Barcelona, and this guy got up to sing this song, Jealous Guy, and he got onto the stage. I think he was a bit drunk. He just keeled over. Yeah, he just collapsed. And they went to help him. I think he was fine, actually. But I wanted to share that idiom with you, to keel over. But getting back to our past continuous, yeah, this is a really good example. So Brian tells us that he was dreaming of the past, his heart was beating fast. And elsewhere in the song, he says he was feeling insecure that she might not love him anymore. Well, I'm assuming it's a she. And that he was shivering inside. He was shivering inside. So there we are. So the past tense is made with the verb to be, of course, was or were, of course. Was or were. And the present participle. Okay. So I was doing, I was playing, I was fixing. The same in the present, I am doing, I am fixing. So we just put was in there instead. What's interesting, I think, is that we don't use the past participle. It's always the present participle because it's continuous. So even though I'm using I was, I don't say I was shivered, because that would take us into the passive voice, I was caught by somebody, for example. Yeah, or I was spoken to. Okay, so that's an entirely different thing. So you want the present participle, as Brian tells us in the song, I was shivering inside. I was shivering inside. Lovely song, that, isn't it? Yeah. And speaking of Brian shivering inside, this is World Mental Health Day. So, of course, it's very important that we always talk about our feelings. I mean, Brian in this song is telling the world that he was dreaming of the past and his heart was beating fast. He was feeling insecure. I mean, when's the last time you heard a man saying that he was feeling insecure? Men really aren't very good at opening up with emotions and feelings. I think Britain, we're getting better at that now. I think younger people aren't afraid to say things about how they feel, but the older generation, they were diehards, they thought that to share an emotion or a feeling was a weakness. It was something women did. Maybe I've told you this before, but in Australia, they realized 10, 15, 20 years ago that lots of middle-aged men were committing suicide. And to commit suicide is when a person chooses to kill themselves, okay? But in Australia, they realized this was a big problem. So they started this shed project because they realized that if you put a man in a room with somebody, he's not going to talk. He's not going to say how he feels. But if you give a man a job to do, like build a shed, while he's building the shed, he will talk to the person he's building the shed with. I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? For me, I'll talk to anyone. I don't care who they are. Don't give me a shed because I won't build it, but I'll very happily tell you how I feel if you ask me. But anyway, in case you're wondering, a shed is just a small hut, the kind that go at the end of your garden, So, so they realized that if they put men on a roof of a shed or ask them to do work with another guy, they'll talk. Two men will talk to each other while they're working, but they won't open up if you just ask them to. So anyway, in Australia, they managed to deal with this problem of suicide by getting men who were middle-aged and unemployed to build sheds. A wonderful job. And I see that they've started doing that here as well. They're encouraging more middle-aged men to work with other men just to get them to talk, because in the English world, men hold that very traditional view of masculinity where you shouldn't show weakness. You shouldn't show that you're a bad person, or you shouldn't show that you've done something wrong, or you feel something bad inside. And yeah, they just hold everything inside, you know. It's tragic. So on World Mental Health Day, if you are that kind of person, it's good to keep that in mind. Um, if you are wanting to listen to Jealous Guy, Brian tells us in the song, I was swallowing my pain. Well, that's a strange thing to say in a song, isn't it? Um, and I think that's the only other reference he makes to the past continuous. But that kind of sums up World Mental Health Day. So if you are struggling with your mental health, don't be afraid just to open up and say something. My goodness me, there's nothing wrong with telling people how you feel. As a teacher on the internet, I do get to hear a lot of people's lives, and yeah, it's quite sad, some of the stories that I hear during English classes. I was talking to someone just last week, and she told me that she just had kind of given up on life a little bit. Um, I'm not surprised. I mean, she'd met some guy on the internet to date, and he was in, I think he was in Greece, and she was in, I can't remember where it was. I think it was Armenia or Georgia, somewhere like this. She paid for his airline tickets, and then he didn't arrive. She went to the airport, she waited 2 hours for him, and it wasn't the first time she'd done this. He didn't turn up, and of course, she got depressed. I mean, whatever happened to people actually going out and meeting people, you know, like in public places, like bars, or meeting people face to face through friends? Don't people do that anymore? I mean, really, it seems crazy that you would meet someone on the internet and pay for their flight tickets to come and see you. Doesn't that just sound bizarre? Um, Even if you do start an internet relationship, meet as soon as you possibly can. Um, I don't think the internet can be used as an excuse not to meet real people, says the man who sits in front of the internet for 8 hours a day teaching. But anyway, you don't need to take my advice. You just need to get out the house sometimes. Go for a little walk, you know. That's what I do. Anyway, yeah. So just to round up what we're saying on the past continuous. So Brian, from the voice of experience, tells us that he was shivering, presumably because he was being dumped by his girlfriend, and she found someone else, and he became very jealous. Lovely song, isn't it? And yeah, this is World Mental Health Day, so get out the house, go for a little walk. Again, says the internet Skype teacher who's waiting for his supermarket shopping to be delivered. Maybe I'm not the best person to give advice on this, but whatever you're doing today, I hope you enjoy it. See you. Bye.